Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, divine attributes expanding further. If you remember, we covered some basics in part 1, where we introduced their importance. There is some repetition today as well, but there are certain new aspects which, as I said earlier, we need to pay attention to. These are the references. Like last time, we got some excerpts taken from The Human Self and Allah, that is in Urdu Mano Yazda. This is our contact. This is a small schematic, need to understand divine attributes to transform the world of 2025. So that means that if we do not understand these attributes, then we simply cannot apply our own self to the problems of world of 2025. So Deen requires that there should be revolutionary transformation taking place within our own self in the light of these divine attributes. This is the word we have. Word of 2025 is created by those who have nothing to do with the divine attributes. Man with latent potentials. And this is something which we should keep in mind, that all of us as human beings have certain latent potentials with which we are born. There are certain potentials which we bring out in the world of 2025, like getting education, getting a job, interacting with others, that is social relations, political statuses, and acquiring power within the man-made system. But these latent potentials, which are over and above our basic potentials, which we require or we use within the man-made system, these are specifically related to bringing out those aspects which will come before us as divine attributes. Allah, with all his attributes, created man to acquire new life by reflecting these attributes. And that is the crux of it. Because Allah has all these attributes which are given in the Quran, and we are invited that if you want to create a new life, you have to understand them and then imbibe them, manifest them in the outer world to the best of your ability in order to understand the system of Deen. And that is important because Allah is sum total of all these divine attributes which are given in the Quran. And that is what the concept of Allah means. That is what Allah is. And when we draw benefit of these attributes, then essentially we are in contact with that concept of Allah, which is going to give us new life, and then we will be of use to the program of Allah as given in the Quran. The verse 68:4 says that the messenger is on khulqan azim, which means he has acquired all these attributes to the best possible way a human being can acquire. And as a result, all the promises related to the system of Deen were fulfilled with him, as well as with the companions who supported those efforts. And Quran says that these are within the reach of every human being, and particularly those who come to the Quran. Eimaan plus solid deeds, we have gone through this aspect, and both are permanent values. Next is divine attributes plus permanent values. We have gone through a number of permanent values, and now we are with divine attributes, and that will complete this whole formula, which is going to give us new life. And Quran says the Quranic system is predicated on the transformation of the human psyche or self. And this is where we have to concentrate, that I have a self, and how good, how highest eminence and loftiness I can acquire using the Quran in this very life, so that all that which is promised to mu'mineen becomes fulfilled. And Quran says, Inna Allaha la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. And see the collective sentence over here. Quran says that Allah does not change the state of a nation, Qawm, until that Qawm, that nation changes what is within their own psyche. So that means individual to collective system as far as this word is concerned. And then Quran says, Sibqat Allahi wa man ahsanu min Allahi sibqatan wa nahnu lahu abidun. And say to them, baptism is not gained through rituals, and which means that we cannot be colored into Islam or can acquire Eimaan unless we do what Quran is telling us. It is by becoming congruent, that is same color we acquire, which is the color of Allah. And we know when we color something, and if it is nicely colored, then that color overcomes or covers everything of the previous color with the law of Allah. So that means it's a total transformation into that human being who fits into the program of Allah, and then they have to be together in that. Which color can be more beautiful than this one? We have acquired this very color, i.e. adopted obedience to the pure law of Allah. And this is what Quran is asking us, lahu abidun, that we deliberately think through the Quran and then say, this is for me, and then never ever leave it. Now next is belief in Allah without belief in revelation. Some great thinkers in the West, while conceding the existence of Allah, have rejected the view that certain men chosen by Allah were made the recipients of His revelation. They believe that human reason is capable of giving all the guidance that man needs in this life. Man, they claim, can solve all the problems in the world with the help of his reason. So they do not think that our intellect, human intellect, needs any external guidance. And with that kind of assumption, we can see what kind of a world this human intellect has produced over the centuries. He does not need the direct guidance of Allah. Humanism, a religion without revelation, which, by the way, is the title of a well-known book by Julian Huxley, is their creed. So this is how they think. And we come across these kind of a people who do not bring any permanent values into their thinking. They think they are free to do whatever they like. There is nothing new about this creed. The Quran tells us that it was prevalent during the time of the Messenger. Concerning those who held this view, the Quran says, and this is the beauty of the Quran, that all possible outlooks which are of the people who are non-Quranic, who are not guided, is quoted in the Quran because it is from Allah. Ask them, who is it in whose hand is the kingdom of all things, and who protects all but is not protected by any, if ye but know. So over here it means that the laws of Allah are doing everything in the world. And we can see that how this planet Earth on which we are residing for a finite time, how it is protected from every kind of external factors. They will say, in Allah's, say you, how then are you deluded? That why don't you think about it? And we know under the domain of science, all kinds of laws people now know, for example, gravity and the way galaxies are working. But still their mind does not go towards the creator who created it and the purpose of, they do not look for the purpose of their own existence. Nay, we have brought them the truth in this book, and they are liars when they say that they do believe in Allah but not in His book. And that is the beauty of it. So there are only two kind of people, the one who know the truth which is given in the Quran, and those who do not know the truth because they don't wish to. We are not talking about people who are uneducated or illiterate. We are talking about the people who are scientists, well educated, but their mind does not go towards finding out the truth. Now, next slide is belief in Allah without belief in revelation. Continuing the same. Belief in divine revelation is the necessary corollary of belief in Allah. To deny revelation is to strike at the root of Deen. To permit human reason to usurp the office of Wahi is to let man usurp the place of Allah. As a matter of fact, it is absurd to believe in Allah while denying His guidance. So it means nothing. If we are not looking for guidance, then whatever kind of God we believe in, it is meaningless because it is not going to bring that precise change within ourselves, the change which fits into the program of Allah. Suppose A believes that the universe was created by Allah and B affirms that it was the product of natural causes. As these beliefs have no practical consequences, it is immaterial which one is chosen and which one is rejected. And we can see that in the world. There are all kinds of beliefs of God. Everyone says, yes, there is a creator. And then they forget about it because it does not bring any change within their own self. And they keep following their own desires. But suppose A believes that he ought to behave in such a way so as not to transgress the limits prescribed by divine revelation, and B believes that he is free to act in any way he likes. In this case, it is obvious that the difference between them is of vital importance. That is where our education and training on this platform is helpful, because now we can clearly discern between the two ideologies of life. Because the ideology which is put forward by the Quran brings that change which is required for the system of Deen, and it elevates our thinking, it expands our consciousness. Belief in Allah and belief in His revelation are therefore fundamental to Deen. So both are important, because it is through the revelation that we learn the concept of Allah. And once we have learned the concept of Allah, then we apply that concept through His attributes to learn more about the revelation. Rejection of revelation impoverishes Deen so that it ceases to be a living force in a human life. Because if we take out the revelation of the pure Quran, then it becomes religion. And religion is confined to individual relationship between man and their own concept of God, and which can never ever bring any change in the outer world. Next slide is man and obedience to laws. In the external universe, the divine laws are continuing to work automatically, and everything is obliged to follow them. None among these things has the power in any way whatsoever to contravene these laws. They are all prostrate before them. Whatever beings are in the heavens and the earth do prostrate themselves to Allah. And we can see very clearly, sun follows its own course, earth follows its own orbit, moon follows its own orbit. Similarly, there is a hydrological cycle and other things which are working in the universe and also within the earth. Even our body follows Allah's laws, that is physical laws. We don't have any control on our body except whatever we eat and exercise, and those things will affect us. For example, aging process follows physical laws. The individual whose self becomes developed becomes successful and accomplished, and the one whose self remains stifled is ruined and destroyed. And that is where the control is within our own hands. That is, our choices affect the way our self develops or degrades itself. From this, following becomes apparent to us. Number one, obedience of the divine laws is not like the forced obedience of orders which are imposed externally, but is obedience of the constraints imposed by the human self on itself. Now, these points are important, which we are going to discuss in the next few slides, because once we understand, then we can communicate it to others. So these become the basis for our discussion with others and informing others. This is why the Quran has used the word atat to describe this, which means the carrying out of a task willingly with the full participation of the heart. And that is very important, because Quran says, Wa'atiullaha wa'atiur Rasool, which means you obey deliberately, knowing the Quran and the central authority once the Deen is established. But the beauty over here is that after atat, then there is another term used in the Quran, which is ittiba. And ittiba is carried out by animals, like animals, they follow each other. Like the baby of a cow will always follow the mother. Why? Because this is instinctively they do it. And Quran over here says that once you have become Mu'min and you're part of Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, then you turn it to ittiba, because once you have understood that this Quran is for you and it is producing those results which are promised within the Quran, then this atat for mu'mineen will turn into ittiba. When a task is carried out under duress, never mind a self undergoing development, it becomes suppressed and stifled instead. By voluntary, wholehearted obedience to Allah's laws, atat, the ability of the freedom to choose and intent of the human self expands. And that is another beautiful thing which takes place, the change which takes place within our consciousness, that the things which we couldn't see previously, now through this atat, we are able to expand our vision and we can see those things very clearly. For example, the problems created by the man-made system and how those are solved through the system of Deen. On no self does Allah place a burden greater than it can bear, which it means that all the latent potentials which are kept within us, if those are brought out in the light of the Quran, human beings are able to do everything which Quran expects them to do in order to fit into the scheme and program of Allah. So that is important, that Quran is for our own benefit. It is for bring out our best. Now, second slide on the same subject. Since these divine laws are the manifestation of the divine attributes, obedience to them is obedience of the higher standard of the human self itself. And this is the beauty of the Quran, that once we start following the Quran and we know it will take us to that destination of eternity beyond our physical death, then we are guided by it. And that is where we become muttaqi, and as a result, we are, if all the decisions are made within the commands and laws given by the Quran, then risk factor is taken out, even if it appears initially as if there is some loss within the man-made system, but ultimately these things turn out to be in the favor of mu'mineen. To adopt this pattern, that is, we have to accept it, follow it, and then the results tell us that the path followed is the correct one. And beauty is that all those signs of following that path are also given in the Quran, and that is where coming together helps, that so that we can guide each other. In other words, the demands of the human self are satisfied through these. For example, just as in the physical world, if an individual is thirsty and is told by another to drink water, this will not be the obedience of an order. Rather, it will be the satisfaction of the physical demand of his own body. And this is a beautiful example quoted over here. And if you apply it to human self, which means if we recognize the need of our self, that it has to develop, because this self, that is our self, is not satisfied with the man-made system, and it wants to transform the man-made system into that system of Deen, which is given in the Quran, then Quran's laws, values, attributes, Eimaan, solid deeds, everything becomes its need, just like we need water and food to feed and sustain our physical self, our physical body. By obeying these laws, on the one hand, there is strengthening of the human self, and he sees through his own evidence-based vision that his status is higher than the whole of the outer universe. And this is another sign, when we follow the Quran and understand all that is given over here and acquire a developed self, then we can see our own position vis-a-vis others. And even if we are living with equal physical human beings, we can see that how much eminent and lofty our understanding has become, where we can see the problems in the world and the problems of all these individuals around us who have yet to come to the Quran. And on the other hand, the eminence and greatness of the divine self in comparison to own self emerges and becomes apparent. As a result, this fact becomes evident that whereas he is higher and superior to the whole of the universe, his status is far lower when compared to his greatest criterion, the divine self. Because now the divine self becomes the senior companion of this self. And we have gone through this aspect previously, because Quran says, Allahu waliyul lazina amanu yukhrijuhum minal zulumat ilan nur. Because Allah's attributes then become our need, just like water and food is the need of our body. And that is an important aspect which we should keep in mind, that a developed self then seeks out these attributes and then displays these strengths in the outer world. And these things will become even clearer once we go through these attributes in subsequent presentations. From this, it also becomes clear that there can be nothing in the universe like unto man, because in the universe, the only possessor of personality is man. Because the Western materialist considers himself, like other things in the universe, to be a product of matter, he can therefore become absorbed in this world of color and fragrance. But the one who holds Eimaan in the Quranic concept of life finds himself to be unique in this physical universe. His companion can be another possessor of a self, i.e., one human being can be the companion of another at an equal level. And at a higher level, the companion of man can be Allah himself. And we have gone through this aspect previously as well, that from a biological, physical relationship of living together, once we come to the Quran, become a moment, then this Jamaat starts appearing, starts taking birth from ordinary human beings and reach a higher level of understanding by coming together, because then they become the junior companions of Allah, because Allah becomes their model. And this is something very important which needs our very profound reflection for the rest of our life. That do we wish to be the companion of Allah and understand these attributes? And that is where then Eimaan comes in, and we understand our own significance, and then we enhance our own value using the Quran. And then we can compare it with others who haven't come to the Quran. It's not trying to put down other human beings. It is to prepare ourselves for that system of Deen where we achieve that self which fits into the program and scheme of Allah, so that we can explain to others and tell them that there is a better way of living this life, and living within the man-made system is an animalistic existence. Explaining the companionship of Allah. We observe that in the outer universe, the results of the divine laws manifest themselves in a tangible form in front of us, some rapidly, others far later. For example, the seed of any tree contains the potential that if it is nourished according to the divine law, then one day it will become a tall and sturdy tree for all to see. This outcome can come to fruition in front of us during our own lifespan. And we see this phenomena taking place right in front of us. But there are some schemes of nature which are such that their results become established after many thousands of years. For example, for the first life cell to reach to the human form occurred over millions of years after traversing different evolutionary stages. But we also observe that if man joins hands with that of nature, then not only is there a significant reduction in this time period within which some act had to bear a result solely according to the laws of nature, but there is also a manifold increase in its beauty and attraction, utility and benefit. And we can see that being displayed in today's world, where through, for example, industrial revolution, man has changed the surface of the earth. And if the same man comes to the Quran and utilizes the permanent values, it will truly turn the face of the earth into that paradise in which both self of the man and the physical body both will benefit. That same plant, which under normal circumstances blossomed with flowers after 6 months, and that too in only one color, in the laboratories of Europe can bear multicolored flowers within 24 hours. And we see that now the abundance of products in the world and the varieties which have been added. And if man can do that, man is equally capable of changing the plight of human beings and by following these permanent values. And this is something which we should keep in mind, that why these human beings who are so advanced on the technology side cannot think of doing good to fellow human beings. This means that when man becomes the companion of the divine laws, then swiftness is added to the creative program of Allah and beauty is created in its outcome. With this slide, we can also understand that once the system of Deen is established in some land where power is acquired by Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, that the face of that land can be very quickly transformed. Once human beings living over there, they become rational beings and understand the message of the Quran and bring a change within them. And it can be very rapid, because human beings, once they desire something and feel a need for that, they can change very rapidly. Now, explaining the companionship of Allah, the form in which the divine laws as bearers of results exist in the outer universe is also that same form which exists in the human world. And this is in terms of clash between haq and batil, because there is always resistance to change, and people who are following or who are the beneficiary of the existing man-made systems, they always try to go against haq. This principle is functioning in the universe, that there is a continuous battle between haq and batil. And haq means which produces constructive results and always produces constructive results, and also meets the needs of the time. And batil is which produces wrong results, produces destruction, particularly in the long run. And it is only benefit few rather than whole of mankind. And in this clash, haq smashes the head of batil, and thus batil ultimately becomes destroyed and eradicated. And this is only possible if Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen emerges. And we should always keep in mind that Allah's laws help those, that Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, who emerges out of mankind. Constructive forces ultimately overcome destructive forces, and in this way, the universe keeps advancing forward while traversing through its evolutionary stages. And that is something which is a challenge for Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, that do they wish to go through this evolutionary stage, or they want to use the divine attribute of Rahman and bring the changes rapidly. So Quran is the one which can help us to get the change very quickly. It can take us through emergent evolution rather than through progressive evolution. As the Quran has stated, this is the law of nature. And we should keep in mind these things take time, because not a lot of work has been done towards the system of Deen. And in fact, in this century, because of Pervez and his writings, the system of Deen has been projected in its real form, and all explanations have been done, and at least we know the fundamentals of it. As the Quran has stated, this is the law of nature. Verily, a day in the sight of your Rabb is like 1,000 years of your reckoning. And another place, this verse, it says 50,000 years of your reckoning. So it is, choice is ours. If we wish to wait for 1,000 years, then we don't have to follow this, for example, on this platform. We can give it up and keep doing what the people in religious domain are doing. But if we think that Allah's laws are working and we can get Allah's help quickly within one lifespan, finite lifespan of a human being, then we should work towards the system of Deen using all the education, training, and self-development which we are sharing over here. But if human companionship is united in this, then this victory of haq can materialize in a few days. And it is literally few days. Because if we know the model of Messenger Yusuf, it happened within few years, and in that land of Egypt, things changed very rapidly. Because when human beings decide to do something, they can do it very quickly. And we can see, like China, in the case of industrialization and manufacturing and, of course, the communication, they have brought so much change within the last 2 decades. But this companionship can only materialize from those men who have a solid conviction in the truth of the divine laws. And that is where it matters. Have we acquired that solid conviction in the truth of the divine laws, and then are working on it 24/7 and thinking about it? And who are busy making efforts and taking actions for the development of their self. And that is the first step. If we haven't acquired that self, which the Quran is asking us to acquire, and which is within the reach of every human being on this planet Earth, Eimaan plus Saleh deeds, a group of such individuals is called a Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen. As a result of the efforts and actions of this Jamaat, such a society comes into existence in which the divine laws continue to become effective and manifest results within the minimum of time. So it is worth giving it a try in our rest of our finite life. And if we convince ourselves and then work on this, then it is possible that the results will appear in a fairly short period of time. Individual and society. The Quran has stated in very clear terms that development of the human self cannot take place as a lone individual. This can only take place within a Jamaat, a Quranic society. Addressing the individual, it states, "Enter you then among my servants. Yes, enter you my heaven." And just concentrate on the words my. And now we'll look at the Arabic side of this verse. Fadkhuli fi ibadi, wadkhuli jannati. And this is what Quran is addressing to his mu'mineen, that now through your efforts you should taste that goodness of coming together, and then see how gradually this Jannat evolves, emerges right in this life. So we should keep in mind that it is not about individual salvation. Allah wants us to turn the face of this earth into that paradise which is promised to mu'mineen in the Quran and quite repeatedly. If you wish to enter paradise, then enter the Jamaat of the men of Allah. In another verse it is stated, so sitting at home and doing nothing while having a time to be able to become part of this effort is a must. And if we do not do that, that means we are not interested in that Jannat which the Quran is putting forward before us. And we should remember that this ibadi, my servants, and see the beauty of it, those who follow my laws, who have handed over their life and possessions in my cause. And then we should give it a try and see whether that helps comes or not. The thing is, if we do not try, we will never know it. And be with those who are true in word and deed. And we can look at these verses from Surah Tawbah. This is the reason that the Quran has declared the solitary cloisters of monasteries and the places of worship of mystics as a concoction of the human mind, which is contrary to the Deen defined and presented by Allah. We can look around the world and see all these religions and their sects. They can never ever produce those results which are given in the Quran. That means they can never ever get that help of those laws of Allah, which we can only get by becoming his companion and by understanding these divine attributes, permanent values, Eimaan and Saleh deeds, and by coming together on this. This is not something which is an individual relationship between man and Allah. The Deen of Allah becomes established within a society. Deen provides the principles and values for the mutual relations of mankind. If some individual goes to a jungle where there is no other human being, then he needs neither Deen nor Eimaan. Nor can development of itself take place, nor is there any form of evolution of human life. That means if we haven't made any effort to be part of this Jamaat, to be part of Allah's program, then essentially we have wasted our life and we have lived a life at an animalistic level. In fact, he cannot even live life at a human level. Therefore, Deen demands collectivism, and the development of the self of an individual is only possible within a society. Now, next is formation of a nation. When any two human beings in the world set the aim of their life as being only one, i.e., there is only one objective and destination in front of them, the pattern according to which they wish to mold their life is also the same. Then the creation of mutual harmony in their outlook and vision is a natural outcome. This is what is called unity of thought and vision, or the sharing of Eimaan. Very important statement which is noted over here sums up the ideology of the Quran. There are only two ideologies in the world to which the Quran points our attention. It says either you are following kufr or you are following Eimaan. And if you are not part of Eimaan, you are not part of Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen who have come together towards the system of Deen, then whatever you can call yourself, according to the Quran, it is a life of kufr. It's a very strong term used by the Quran, that this life is created for human beings and put a choice before them whether they want to live a life of kufr or they want to live a life of a mu'min. And it invites mu'mineen that they should work on the part of as the companions of Allah so that they can change the face of the earth using what is given in the Quran. This is that unity of thought and vision which the Quran declares as being the reason for the coming together of people, i.e., no matter where two persons of the world live, whatever may be their color, language, race, or nationality, if they place the divine attributes in front of them as external criteria and are engrossed in efforts to develop their self according to these, then both these human beings, despite having differentiations of color, race, language, and nationality, will be members of one Jamaat and will be citizens of one nation. Very important, once we have same ideology, same Eimaan, working towards the system of Deen and not happy with the man-made system, that is وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ, we have done that through the core of our hearts, and we have told Allah that now we put our life, our possessions at your disposal, then they become part of another Jamaat. And this is a very firm commitment. We have to decide that have we committed to it or not, because half-hearted commitment means nothing. There is only disappointment waiting for us in the later part of our life and of course after death. The Quran has stated this to be the very criterion for the formulation of nationality. The unity which is produced among men in this way is far stronger and longer lasting than the bonds of blood, color, language, and the relationships of nationality. And this is important for us to understand that this life is only once we got this physical life to live in this world. And we do not come back to this world because the only route of coming back is the biological route. If this unity keeps spreading and ever greater numbers of human beings in the world harmonize together in this way and become of one color, then through this, the whole of mankind will become one universal brotherhood. It is obvious from this that the necessary outcome of Tawheed, that is oneness of Allah, oneness of law, Tawheed of Allah, keeping itself as a criterion in front, is the oneness of humanity. Apart from this, there is no other basis for the oneness of humanity. The aim and objective of the Quran is that gradually all human beings, by making the Tawheed of Allah as the practical model of their life, become one universal brotherhood, and in this way, all those differences due to which today the world is turning into a den of beasts are eliminated. And we can see the world of today, despite all the technology and developments and covering the whole of the planet, there are serious problems with most of the mankind. What does it mean to have Eimaan in Allah? From the above explanations, this reality becomes apparent to us what the concept of Allah is according to the Quran and what it means to have Eimaan in Allah. After this, it also becomes clear why the Quran makes this demand from all the human beings of the world that they should have Eimaan in that Allah whose concept the Quran has presented. Leaving aside a few atheists in the world, every person, every tribe, every nation is convinced of the existence of God in some form or another. But the Quran declares that your belief in God in this way is not in truth the acceptance of God. This amounts to recognition of that God whose concept is coined by you. That is your personal concept of God, or other men like you. For example, an individual says that I believe that gold is a good metal, its color is white, humid air causes it to rust, and striking it against a hard material shatters it into pieces. And since it is the lightest metal in the world, it is therefore commonly used in the construction of airplanes. It is obvious that the individual who becomes convinced of the existence of the metal holding these characteristics by calling it gold is in fact denying the existence of real gold. So the true characteristics of anything in the world, which are in reality its true characteristics, that is a fact, that is real. Otherwise it is batil. Only that person who is convinced of its correct and true characteristics will be acknowledged as accepting the existence of gold. So the true concept of Allah, which is given in the Quran, unless we pick that up, understand it, develop full conviction and then say, here I am the companion of Allah. Doesn't matter even if whole mankind turns against it, even if I'm alone here, I will pursue this path of life. Hence, the belief in God of the individual who may be convinced about God but is not aware of the correct concept of his attributes is equivalent to denial of the true God. And this is a powerful statement made over here. It is his attributes which we have to understand and then bring out our best in the light of those attributes and carry out those tasks which the Quran has asked us to carry out individually as well as collectively, and the change which will come within ourselves will become an evidence of that Eimaan and Saleh deeds and of course those attributes, and we will know that we are on the correct path because it's evidence based. There are signs given in the Quran about that, and we will come to that once we go through these attributes. Therefore, Eimaan in Allah will be accepted only from the individual who has conviction in that Allah whose attributes are detailed by the Quran, and those attributes are not noted anywhere other than in the Quran. And we can do that. We should read the books, and also nowadays we can watch a number of videos and clips on YouTube about God and religious God and the concepts, and we can figure out that none is like the Quran. Next is characteristics of Quranic Eimaan. The concept of Allah which the Quran presents is not available anywhere else. The concept of the relationship which the Quran details between Allah and man also cannot be found anywhere else. It is a unique relationship in which we become companion of Allah, the creator of the world, who is always there and who possesses all these attributes. And one of the attributes, for example, of Allah is Hayyul Qayyum, that he is alive himself, nobody gave him life. And he was always there and he gives life. And imagine once we understand that concept and give it place in our own head, getting rid of every preconceived belief system which we inherited from the man-made system, and then see what kind of new life emerges within our own self. The Quran tells us that Allah has control and power over the whole of the universe, but he uses his sovereignty according to his own laws made by him. And there is never any change in these laws. This whole system of the universe is busily functioning within these defined and established laws which are operational and immutable. These very laws are also functioning in the human world, which means that every deed of man produces a defined effect, and there is never any exception in this. Though every man has a choice in doing whatever deed he wishes, it cannot happen that he performs a deed of one kind but creates the effect of some other. These results are established according to the laws defined by Allah. Next is accepting those attributes which are purely related to the omnipotence and omniscience of Allah. For example, that none has created him. That is, nobody created Allah. Allah was always there. Nor has he come into existence from nothing. The fundamental attributes of the human self are the same as the attributes of the divine self, with this difference that these attributes of the human self are finite and in a constrained form and are also undeveloped. Their development can only take place provided that man keeps the divine attributes as a standard in front of him. So we have to progress from zero to the level of Khulq Azim, and that is important to keep in mind, that there is a continuous self-development takes place once we come to the Quran and start following these divine attributes. This is the fundamental relationship between a human being and Allah. That which is termed as obedience of the divine laws is not the obedience of the orders of an absolute dictator, but instead is obedience of the guidance through which development of the human self takes place. This is the way we are created. This is the purpose of our creation, that we create new life. The first life, that is the biological one, was given by Allah. And now we have all the tools within us, within our cognition, and these tools are available to poor man as well as the rich man. And we have to use those tools, these value systems which are given in the Quran, and bring new life, and then strengthen that life, and then come together as a result of acquiring Eimaan, and then work towards the system of Deen by remaining together. And this is the new relationship to which Quran says that your hearts are united by this Eimaan. By obeying these instructions, the demands of this human self are satisfied. And what are these demands? We have to know that we have certain demands of ourselves. We have certain latent potentials, and we wish to bring them out in order to benefit from this life. Next slide is characteristics of Quranic Eimaan. When we mention the divine attributes, which are in Arabic, as we know, Asma'ul Husna, then it is also, in fact, a reference to the attributes finite and in a constrained form of our own self. This is why it is stated in the Quran. And as we said in our first part as well, that when we say finite, it is in relation to human self. This does not mean that the Quran has laid down any upper limit to becoming good. For example, nowhere Quran says that if these messengers could do it, you cannot do it. The whole point of the Quran is that the messengers are presented as models of those mu'mineen who reached that highest pinnacle of their eminence as human beings within the constraints of the society in which they lived. And same is applicable to us. And Quran, by not stating the upper limits, is telling us that you have tremendous potentials, and these latent potentials will keep multiplying even in the life of the hereafter. This is why it is stated in the Quran, surely we have sent a book in your direction in which is your zikr. And the Arabic is لَقَدْ أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ كِتَابًا فِيهِ ذِكْرُكُمْ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. And I have highlighted alaykum. That is over here, if we take the initial period of the revelation, then it is addressed to Rasulullah. And now it is addressed to each one of us, that over here Allah has sent this book, Kitaban. Kitaban over here will means all the values, principles, attributes, whichever are required, and laws which are required for human self-development and to create new life are given over there. Fihe, it is within these. And what will these do? Zikrukum, these will elevate you to that eminence and loftiness for which you are created in this life. So don't waste your life. And all of this zikr you will understand, afala taqilun, if you use your akal, if you use your intellect, if you use all the abilities, metacognitive abilities given to you. That is thinking about thinking, which is given to you. So we are not an ordinary creation like animals in this life. We have tremendous purpose waiting us in our later part of life, right on this planet as well as in the life of the hereafter, after our death. As the human self keeps developing, he continues to become a participant in the creative program of Allah. In this way, the relation of Allah and man becomes one of companionship in which Allah is, however, the companion with the higher status. And what this companionship means, we should go out sometimes in a garden and look at the universe all around us, the sun shining, the clouds, everything, and think that whole of this creation is for me. And this is what Allah wants us to benefit from our creation, and how much more is awaiting us in the life of the hereafter if we stick to this path and stay together. This relationship between Allah and man will not be found anywhere else other than in the Quran. Among the followers of religion in the East, the relationship of man with God is only this much, that man worships God because this is the command of God, which man has to obey, whether willingly or unwillingly. If an individual does not obey his command, then God becomes angry. And this is prevalent among all religions in the outer world. In order to appease him, it is necessary to make offerings to him or to gain intercession through someone closer to him. So all responsibility in the religious world, man puts on Allah, that my deeds mean nothing. It is your mercy, your love, which will get me through the life of the hereafter, and I can do whatever I like in this life and create a horrible world which we see all around us, full of fear and grief. Some general comments on the Quranic Eimaan. Contrary to this, according to the philosophers and thinkers of the West, the relevance of God is only related to the outer universe in which his laws in the form of natural laws are operating. It is the task of man to study these laws and by applying them harness the forces of nature and bring them into his use. As for the human world, in this men will need to resolve their matters through the use of their own intellect and wisdom. For these, there are no immutable principles and laws. And human mind does think about it that I do not need external guidance because once it is basically egoistic and is very much narcissistic. And whereas Quran says that you have to come out of it, you have to question your existence, you have to question the world around you and the man-made system and its problems. Another concept of the relationship with God is that of those people who have faith in spiritualism. They claim that they have a direct contact with God. They talk to God, hold meetings with him, get the supplications of people accepted from him. He discloses hidden matters to them, etc. The concept of these kinds of connections is also against Quranic teaching. Whatever Allah wished to impart to mankind is conveyed in a complete form for the last time in his book, the Quran. The only means of contact now with Allah for human beings is by following his book. Another thing which comes to our mind, and I have come across this kind of wording as well from people, will Allah put all these majority in hell? And we fail to understand that Allah does not put anyone into hell. People go to hell. They create hell for themselves through their own deeds. And Quran is very clear. It says in some verses that even if whole of mankind goes against Allah's laws, it will make no difference. So that is why Quran says in the case of the messenger Ibrahim that he was an ummah in himself. Why he was an ummah in himself? Because through his conduct, through his iman, through his righteousness, he proved that the revelation of Allah can be followed. And of course, he had companions as well. And Quran also says that we granted him power in the land. From this reality will have become evident why the Quran has proclaimed to the God worshippers of the world. So if they have iman as you have iman, that is the messenger has iman, they are indeed on the right path. And this also is true for ourselves, that once we acquire the iman of the Quran, as Quran says, وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ, then it will become evident on us as well that unless people have brought that change through this iman within themselves, they are of no use to the system of Deen. And that is another important sign which we learn by following the Quran. Some related verses for illustration. What I have done over here is that before concluding this presentation, I've taken some verses which are towards the end of Surah Al-Hashr, and some attributes, divine attributes, have also appeared in those verses. I thought to share those with the forum over here. Acquiring knowledge and a very high level of self-consciousness, Quran says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu taqullaha wal tanzur nafsum ma qaddamat ligad wattaqullaha innallaha khabirum bima ta'malun. O Jamaat Mu'mineen, you always obey the laws of Allah. And we know attaqullah means to obey his laws. And by ignoring the immediate benefits, always keep in mind that what have you done for the prosperities of the future. Wal tanzur nafsum ma qaddamat ligad. And what Quran says is that now onwards, from today, every day you should know that what you are doing today is going to have an effect on your tomorrow. Wattaqullaha, again Quran says, always keep in mind, you should minimize risk in life, and you will minimize by following the Quran. And remember again, this is a collective tense. This will only be possible if you take care of the laws of Allah in every situation. Why Quran says collective? It is because Quran says, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, that by coming together, then you can guide each other, because human beings forget if one makes a mistake, then another one can guide. So that is why it is also important that in making our decisions, if we are sincere towards the Quran, we should consult each other. We should seek the advice that what does Quran say in any complex matter of life within the man-made system. Remember, Allah's law of requital is aware of every deed of yours. And this is important. And again, we should also be fully aware of every deed of ours from here onwards. The concept of Allah leads to recognizing the existence of the self and its need for self-development. And Quran says in the next verse, وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. You should always keep this reality in mind that the purpose of life includes both the needs of physical life and the development and growth of the self. Rather, this is the basic goal. Hence, do not be like those people who ignored the laws of Allah. Its consequence was that their own self became concealed from their own eyes and their life became the life at the animalistic level. And we see plenty of animalistic life around in our world. And in fact, before coming to the Quran, we ourselves lived at an animalistic level. And we can compare with that what was that animalistic level. There are plenty of verses in the Quran which point to that fact. They forgot I. They forgot that they had an I. They had something within themselves which has the ability to develop, to acquire new life and then go on to the next life. And their ultimate goal became mine. That is my car, my house, my wife, my husband, my children, my land, my holidays, and everything is under mine. And all of these are left behind at the time of death. Only I goes forward. And that is why Quran says, وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ, that this I should look at its deeds and thoughts, what it is sending forward for its tomorrow. So we should get our priorities right if we wish to work as companion with Allah. Otherwise, there is no Jannat waiting for us in the hereafter. These are the very people who adopt wrong paths by straying away from the correct path. The outcome of forgetting Allah is that man becomes unfamiliar with his own reality. So what should we do with this I, which is giving us consciousness, that divine energy within us, that is making us make certain decisions? What decisions are we making? Are these decisions going to take us to the next life or not? Are these decisions going to help us to put that system of Allah right in this world by getting His help? And those are the kind of questions we should ask ourselves. Forgetting Allah and forgetting one's own self are intrinsically linked. So if we do not understand the concept of Allah, which is given in the Quran, and have not accepted it, then very frankly, we forgot the purpose of our own I. Now the next verse is continuous self-evaluation based on Eimaan plus solid deeds using the Quranic science leads towards establishing Deen, i.e. paradise in this world and assurance of the hereafter. La yastavi ashabun nare wa ashabul jannate humul faizun. And just concentrate on word ashab, which is a plural of sahib, and sahib means the one who owns it. For example, sahibul bayt means the owner of a house, and ashabun nar over here means those will own fire. This fire will not come from somewhere else. This is the fire they will be creating themselves. And Ashabul Jannat are the ones who have created Jannat paradise of their own by becoming the companion of Allah. And so Quran says, La yastawi, they cannot be equal. And our own developed self tells us that where we stand, whether we own fire or not. Ashabul Jannati humul faizun, and by saying faizun means it is within our reach through our own deeds. Eimaan and salih deeds will make us faiz. Remember, training and strengthening of the self is the name for the life of Jannat, and ignoring it is Jahannam. So we create our own Jannat and Jahannam as we live our life. And Quran puts forward all the signs of Jahannam as well as Jannat. And it is clear that those living in Jannat and Jahannam cannot be the equivalent of each other. prosperities and successes only fall into the share of those in Jannat. And over here, these prosperities and successes are not those which we relate to the man-made system. Of course, those are important to get through this life, but to understand these and then work for the system of Deen, not accepting these as the end in itself. Illustrating the Quranic message through a metaphor, and Quran says, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. And this Jannat can only be achieved when Quran descends into the depths of your hearts. The impact of this Quran is such that, for example, if we had placed it in the heart of a mountain, given it the perception, then you would have witnessed that by the feeling of disobedience, it would have started to quake. And with the awareness of responsibilities, it would have trembled. Such metaphors are noted so that people use their intellect and reasoning and ponder what supreme realities this Quran holds and what are the consequences of going against it. And we can see the consequences of going against it. The word of 2025 is a glaring evidence for that. Now, next verse is some divine attributes shared in the next three verses. Huwallahu allazi la ilaha illa huwa alimul ghaibi wa shahadati huwa rahmanur rahim. So four attributes, divine attributes are mentioned here: al-ghaib wa shahada, ar-rahman, ar-rahim. Why should he not be the possessor of those exaltations? This is the book of that Allah other than who no one has authority and control. And together with this, he possesses knowledge of the seen and the unseen. And see, the beauty of the Quran is that Allah wants to share with us, but of course he wants us to go through this process by accepting his companionship in terms of carrying out all those tasks which he has taken on himself in this life, and in the process we create new life within us. Then we come together and start doing those things by establishing the system of Deen. Of course, the power comes towards us from his side by following his laws. He knows about everything, what its present state is and what its latent potentials are and what it is capable of becoming. The Quran is telling us that you have tremendous latent potentials, which some will come out right in this life and others will come out once you are on this path, that is Sirat al-Mustaqim, in the life of the hereafter. Whatever means of sustenance and nourishment are needed for the manifestation and growth of these potentials, all these are made available free from the direction of Allah. Next is some more aspects highlighted in the next verse. Huwallahu allazi la ilaha illa huwal malikul qudusus salamul mu'minul muhaiminul azizul jabbarul mutakabbir subhanallahi amma yushrikun. It is from that Allah other than who no one else has authority and control in the universe. The whole universe is his dominion. This is a very powerful statement of fact which we need to think about it. The whole universe is his dominion, not of Pharaoh, not of any other human being. Other than him, no one else's law is functioning. The expanse of his sovereignty and knowledge is infinite. See what it means to be his companion. His being is complete and free from any fault, and he provides the means for the development of everyone's self. He keeps the universe secured from destructive forces, and nothing is outside the sphere of his watch. And this is glaringly visible. And see how much tolerance Allah has kept in his laws, that so much damage human beings are doing on this planet, but he's giving them time. But obviously the end will come at some point. But that also means that Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen have plenty of time to work together towards the system of Deen. Time is, once they have come together and started working on that, they should be rest assured that they will get a chance unless they give up. He has every kind of supremacy and control, due to which he has the power to make his program reach its completion. And that is important because he has a program and he is not in a hurry. We are in a hurry because we want to establish that system within our finite time, because we are fed up with the word of 2025. He has kept everything within the grip of his law so that these cannot move an inch from their position. And in this way, there is no disorder in the system of the universe. There is no partner of his. And he doesn't have any partner because people associate with him. Whole religious world is full of associating partners, which is called shirk. As a result, they can never ever get the support and help of Allah's laws. The only way to get his help, to get aid from his side in terms of establishing the system of Deen, our minds must be totally non-contaminated. There is no partner of his. All supremacy and exaltation belongs to him. He is far above this, that some other power should be associated with him. And we will cover it in more detail once we come to the attributes. Now the last verse, reminding Mu'mineen about their own significance when they acquire these attributes. And Quran says, Huwallahul Khaliqul Bariul Musawwiru Lahul Asma'ul Husna Yusabbihu Lahu Ma Fis Samawati Wal Ardi Wa Huwal Azizul Hakim. These verses which we have shared over here, it will help if we can go through these few times in our own time and then think through this, what Quran is trying to tell us, what Allah is trying to tell us, and convince us that we should go for his companionship if we are dissatisfied with the human world. If we are not dissatisfied, then this is meaningless. There is no need actually even to go through the Quran. That Allah is the creator of everything. The state of his act of creation is that he initiates the creation of everything from its point of commencement. And this is applicable to us as well as human beings. Remember, we start something even in this world, on this path of Sirat al-Mustaqim, from nothing. First, we bring a change within our individual self. Then a desire becomes created that we should go to other mu'mineen and look for them. Then these come together. Then others join in as well. And that is how the Jamaat is formed. Gradually it starts gaining strength if these individuals keep working together. Then he makes it go through different evolutionary phases in such a way that unnecessary appendages become separated from it until it adopts a specific form which makes it distinct from other things. And this is also applicable to the formulation of Jamaat. And we know that, for example, almost 5 years ago, we started on this journey of educating and training ourselves and doing self-development, that a lot of people joined in and left. They didn't fit into that creative process of Allah towards the system of Deen. And we will see people joining in and then giving up because they are not sure whether they will get that help. They are quite satisfied with the man-made system. They do not possess that patience and firmness to be on this path. And we will see in these attributes that how much Allah is patient and firm in his program. At this stage, you declare that that thing has come into existence. These are a few divine attributes which are noted here. Otherwise, all supreme attributes in their most beautiful and completest form are encompassed in his being. Then his system is such that whatever is in the highs and lows of the universe, all is busy functioning in the completion of his program. He is possessor of every kind of control, but his authority is completely based on reasoning and wisdom. So if we use our own reasoning and wisdom, which is Aziz al-Hakim, Hakim is very applicable over here. Aziz means creating that power, that firmness, that steadfastness within us, that this path is for me. I will never ever leave this path till I die. And that is why Quran says, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. You should stay on this path till the time you meet your physical death, taste it and move forward. This is that Allah whose book is the Quran. It is clear that Allah who is the possessor of these attributes, what eminences and loftiest heights his book will possess. And the nation which acts on this book, to what extent these divine attributes will reflect beauty and adornment in it, and to what extent it will be a cause for peace and security for mankind in the human world. So it's not an ordinary book which we are trying to study and make sense out of it and trying to develop ourselves and acquire all these attributes after acquiring Eimaan and doing solid deeds. It's a book which will take us to that destination which is promised by Allah in the Quran. Finally, what I've done over here is I've drawn a schematic to sum up what we have covered so far. The Quran provides the external criteria by to keep checking our individual and collective path of life and not to be distracted by any unbridled desires. Very important, because if we are distracted by our unbridled desires, then we will slow down. It will put us back. It will not bring those results which are associated with following the straight path of Allah. Divine attributes help to acquire higher eminence by becoming mu'mineen, and the permanent values lay down the limits and boundaries for the system. 100% success is guaranteed for those who choose to follow this path as per 2/256. And this is the mankind. And out of this mankind, وَلَوْ شَئْنَا لَرَفَعْنَهُ بِهَا وَلَكِنَّهُ أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ. And Quran says, if it had been our will, we should have elevated him with our signs. So people who do not come to the Quran despite hearing about it, they prefer to remain as at the base level as animals. They have nothing. But he inclined to the earth and followed his own vain desires. So by following vain desires, we really ruin our hereafter. That means all the latent potentials which Allah has given us, we fail to bring out. And all the pleasure which is associated with these latent potentials, once these start manifesting in our life, it's a totally different pleasure. It is the pleasure which we simply can never, ever get a feel of it if we are not exposed to the guidance of the Quran. Sa'a matalul qawmul lazina kazzabu bi ayatina wa anfusahum kanu yazlimun. Evil as an example are people who reject our signs and do injustice to their own selves. And see over here, they do injustice to themselves. And this is the greatest injustice which human beings do to themselves, that even after coming to the Quran and not getting full benefit out of it, because there is so much kept within each one of us, and Allah always available to help us to get through this phase of life. And if we do not make use of it, and the gravity of that will become clear before us once we are into the next life. Man yahdillahu fahuwal muhtadi wa man yudlil faulaika humul khasirun. Whom Allah does guide, he is on the right path. Who goes astray, such are those who are in loss. So Quran very clearly says that you try it, you come onto this, and then you will see that how your path will become enlightened by the light of the Quran. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. The most beautiful and balanced attributes. Husna, we know husn means something very beautiful, something which produces the best results, some of the results which we simply cannot imagine in a man-made system. Belong to Allah, so call on Him by them. So these are the attributes which will give you new life. Direction of the journey of human life, it is a one-way street to the hereafter, so it is our choice whether we wish to make use of the Quran and bring out our own best, or we just want to follow the man-made system. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.